All right, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast, BBOR Black Box Online Radio. Now, I've done a handful of uploads recently on the Zodiac Killer, and I think this might be one of the last ones that I do for a while. I just had a few final things that I was saying as I've been going over the old Zodiac material during the past week. I was going to do a complete upload on the Zodiac suspect, Michael O'Hare, who is someone that I haven't quite talked about on this podcast because, well, to be the flat out, the Michael O'Hare case is very complex. The first thing to say is a lot of the stuff that comes from the Michael O'Hare theories comes to us from Gareth Penn. And I mentioned previously on the podcast that somebody had made a statement that they should not have made the Jake Gyllenhaal movie, Zodiac, about Robert Graysmith. It should have been about Gareth Penn because he was the true person who was, well, just another person who was very, very, very involved with the Zodiac research and went sort of berserk going into that. I mentioned that somebody said that, and I swear to you, I read that on a forum back in 2011, but I was on Gareth Penn's Wikipedia today, and it turned out the person that I read on that forum was plagiarizing somebody named Mike D'Angelo, because Mike D'Angelo wrote that sentence about Gareth Penn for the Las Vegas Weekly, and I mentioned that on the episodes for Black Box Radio, so I just wanted to at least point that out. Okay, not that that's important anyway. Let's talk about the case of Michael O'Hare real fast. This isn't going to be a full upload on him because the case of Michael O'Hare is he is a Zodiac suspect that is all about things like math, binary, Morse code, and those are the first things you'll get when you Google Michael O'Hare Zodiac. Also radiant theory, but poetry as well. Now, I read part of Gareth Penn's book 17 times. For a while, it was available online for free, and I read through it, and I was just kind of like, not exactly mind blown, but it was more just like, what in the world? It's like, this guy put in an enormous amount of thought into this, and it's one of those things that we have in life where it works if you accept all the premises. But, it's like if you just sort of accept the premise that everything that Penn is saying is right, like if all of his math is right, if all of these things about the binary connections and the bodies of water connection are right, it's like you have to accept so many things, and it's so complicated. So one of the big reasons is, why didn't they make the Zodiac film with Jake Gyllenhaal about Gareth Penn? Well, you'd be talking about math a lot, and maybe that's not how they wanted to present the Zodiac case to the general public. I mean, yes, of course they make movies about mathematicians and such, but maybe starting just a film called Zodiac would not be the best thing to convey to an audience. I still disagree that they should have focused in so much on Arthur Lee Allen. I mean, if you're going to make a film about the Zodiac Killer, why go for Arthur Lee Allen when there's so many other suspects involved? It's like, you don't even have to center it on Robert Graysmith if you don't want to. Some of the other things, though, about this, I would still say that ZodiacKiller.com does not feature anything related to Louis Myers, which I think is kind of a disservice to them. They're kind of cutting themselves short. If you're going to feature stuff on Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and then in your own explanation for Ted Kaczynski, was Ted Kaczynski the Zodiac Killer? Well, they also go in to say that, well, no, he was out of the Bay Area for some of the time when, there were Zodiac murders taking place. He couldn't have done this because people have reported his whereabouts is outside of the Bay Area. It's been confirmed. All right, well, why not look more into the case of Louis Myers? So, that's a little disheartening, and it's like, if they were to make another Zodiac movie, and I'll pose this challenge to you. This is kind of like a comment question of the day. What do you think should be the focus of a feature-length film about the Zodiac Killer? Would you want it to have somebody like Gareth Penn or Robert Graysmith? Again, like a researcher? Should that be the center point? Or should it be about something just people going through all of the different suspects and the possibilities? Because we have so many suspects and so many things seem plausible. Like I said about how the Michael O'Hare theory works if you sort of just accept that all of the math and all of the math connections are connect. And by math, I mean binary radian theory, the Gareth Penn bag of goods. And also, we've talked about theories on this channel, like if you look at Arthur Lee Allen's theory that maybe he had a partner, if you just kind of were to accept that, a lot of pieces fall into place. But also with Richard Gaikowski, also with Louis Myers, maybe also with Ross Sullivan, if you're going to go into some of those things. So many things are fitting into place, if you just kind of accept that somebody is saying everything that is kind of factually inaccurate. What else do you think should be... What would be the subject of a Zodiac film that you would want to convey to the general public? Would you want to have, it centered on why a researcher? Why not one of the families of the victims? I mean, a family member of one of the victims, I should say. Why not center it on them? Or perhaps, maybe you could even look at it from a suspect's point of view, someone like Richard Gaikowski or somebody like Michael O'Hare. I mean, wouldn't it be fascinating to just kind of show their point of view, but you never quite know if they are guilty or not? I mean, with somebody like Richard Gaikowski who has passed away, or, Louis Myers and Ross Sullivan have also passed away, it's like, I don't necessarily think that would be the greatest injustice in the world. By injustice, I mean, what if you put out this film about somebody and it turned out that they were not, and you kind of... Would it tarnish their reputation? I don't necessarily think so, with the enormous amount of information that is already on the internet about these suspects. And that's the thing, though. We already know that they are suspects, so I don't think there's too much harm in naming them as persons of interest in a film. What would you put in your film about the Zodiac Killer? I mean, we talked about, would you center it on a member of a family that related to the victims, or would you center it on a suspect? What would you want to see, and how would you convey the Zodiac to the general public? Somebody trying to break the codes? A police officer again? Because I believe Robert Downey Jr. played the police officer Paul Avery in that film. Would you go about it in... No, sorry, he was a reporter, sorry, completely crossed hairs there, crossed wires. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. But, what do you think would also be something fascinating? Would you want to have somebody in the present day, like 2018, looking back into history of, the late 60s and early 70s? And what do you think would make for a good Zodiac Killer film? And you could also even turn some things, blend in some fiction into it if you like, create sort of a fictional reporter investigating things. Maybe a fictional character who works at Richard Gaikowski's newspaper. Or maybe the truck driver that heard Louis Myers' confession. Or maybe the partner of Arthur Lee Allen that we have fictitiously devised. I mean, a lot of things are open when you look at sort of a fictional film. I would just have to say, though, that this is one case that I'm rather surprised that it's not solved. I've had a lot of caffeine today, so excuse me if I'm, really out of it. Sorry. But it's this is one of the cases that I'm really surprised that this has not been solved, because we have this enormous amount of evidence, and we have all of these leads that are going down different pathways that don't quite always make sense. I mean, like, a lot of the things are just coming to dead ends. A lot of the suspects really sound like they really could be somebody who is a solid person of interest, but they aren't quite making sense. There are things that are missing. There are key details that are just kind of not quite fitting in. As somebody said about the case of Ross Sullivan, it feels like trying to force a square peg through a circular hole. It's like, it might work if you force it enough, but that's what I would say about almost any of the Zodiac killer suspects. And that really sort of raises some big questions. We've had people talk in the question and answer session about, was there a police cover-up of some kind? And, you know, I've been talking a lot about this on this channel, Black Box Radio, when I'm like, a lot of conspiracy theories are really related to somebody either in not even necessarily law enforcement, but someone in some sort of administration, whether it's the police, FBI, CIA, government, uses their administrative power or the power of a badge to cover something up. This is what the Lyndon Lafferty theory is all about. You know, it's like, oh, that'd be a good idea for a film. You know, someone who really believes that they have nailed the Zodiac killer, and they have the suspect, and then that person has to learn something about how their theory is not true. I would watch that. I mean, I would watch most films that you would put out on this subject. I hope they don't make a film about Jack Torrance, though. That was just a disappointing one to hear. But why hasn't the Zodiac killer been solved? That's my next question to you guys. Why hasn't the Zodiac killer been discovered? I mean, we're not talking about Jack the Ripper, right? These are things that have been going on, you know, for a few decades, yes. But with the amount of people that have been looking into the case, why hasn't more physical evidence been uncovered? Why hasn't somebody been able to connect certain dots? And not to mention that we have the Zodiac killer's DNA, allegedly, unless there's a partner going on. What do you think are the biggest things that are holding this case back? Because we have all these theories that are kind of connecting, and all the theories can almost sound like they're making sense. I don't think that the people who have, you know, a lot of far-out Zodiac theories are crazy, even if it's Gareth Penn or Robert Graysmith, or the people who talk a lot about Richard Gaikowski. And, you know, I am someone who has promoted the theory of Louis Myers a lot, not to mention Lyndon Lafferty and his suspect. Why has this case gone unsolved? Why are all of these possible suspects and persons of interest showing so much, well, I was about to say so much value, but it's not quite value. It's just they all kind of make sense if you accept certain things. But what is the real thing that you think is held back the investigation? Is it something like what Lyndon Lafferty said when, you know, the police could have solved this, but somebody used their administrative power to cover it up? In Lafferty's particular case, he says it was like, was it a county judge or a circuit court judge or something like that? But the point is, somebody used their administrative power to cover things up. Is that what you think happened? Or do you think that this is just something that everybody has just been duped? The police are looking in all wrong directions. And the very last thing that I have to say today before going off is somebody has claimed that they cracked the Zodiac cipher. They claimed that on the comments of one of these uploads here on BBOR. But I would like to say, what do you think is the point of the ciphers? What do you think is really going on? When they say that the cipher, you know, has not been completely cracked, the last one, do you think that there is any real message to that? What do you think are the secrets of the Zodiac ciphers? All right, if you have anything to say at all, please leave a comment below. I want to hear from you guys. Thank you to everyone who has commented in the past. I really found that the Zodiac was a particular case of interest, not only for myself, but for some of the people who have been following closely. Thank you to all your support here on Black Box Online Radio. It's a fun channel to work with, and it's nice to discuss ideas. Thank you so much, and that's all for me now. I'm going to take some melatonin and try to go to sleep. It's been a crazy day, but you guys have a good day. Talk to you soon.